Aaldering Estate in the Devon Valley is definitely Dutch owned, and they identify pinotage as the way to explore the terroir of South Africa, to the point that they make pinotage white, pinotage blanc, should I say, and they have the estate pinotage, they use pinotage in blends, but they have unwooded pinotage, which is fairly unusual on the market. People tend to believe that pinotage can only work with barrel aging. So we have this Aaldering Estate, Lady M 2021, 100% pinotage, completely unwooded. What does that give in your glass, Kathy?
Well, this is a wine that's made to honor Marianne Aaldering, and they say that it's honoring her taste for opulent red wines. And I think the word opulent can imply very heavily oaked in some instances. But in this instance, I think her opulence tends towards just looking for that expression of really fruity pinotage. So we do have an opulent colour. I mean, it's reminiscent of the really lovely dark velvet colours that when you brush them one way you get black, and when you brush them the other way you get black pink.
Yes.
So it's really a lovely opulent colour. The wine was a little reductive when we opened it, but that's blowing off, and now you get this really very fruitful, intense brambleberry, mulberry nose. And if I can use a phrase which I find a lot of wine writers tend to use, they say it is unfettered by oak. And now, to be fettered means that you're like a prisoner. You've got the chains between your legs. You sometimes call that when you're putting your horse into a paddock and there's nowhere to tie it by its reins, you then hobble the horse. You kind of, you so that it can't run or go very far. All it can do is just walk. They have to go by a
pair, but they never do.
Yes. So it definitely is unfettered by oak. It means that the fruit runs riot here. On the palate, there's plenty of that mulberry and brambleberry thing, but there's none of the vanilla, none of the oak spices that you'd get if this wine had been aged in oak. And look, they tell us on the paper that it's got nearly 3 grams per litre sugar. But I have to admit that for me, that sugar is also masked by the fruit. It's just so exuberant, so piquant, and there's such a bright acidity that it's a refreshing glassful. And maybe that's where her opulence comes from, is in being refreshing.
It is a very opulent wine. It's clearly the word that first comes to me is sweet fruits. I agree. I got mulberry. I had some slightly overripe plum and really black cherries. On the note, that clear hints of fresh licorice that was intense. And the texture cannot be attributed to the oak. Therefore, on the finish, you can feel the intensity and generosity of that pinotage, the estate block. And yes, maybe it hasn't been in oak. You have this hint of reduction, but remember, a hint of reduction is when the wines start to taste maybe slightly meaty when you open it, and it can be pungent sometimes. But it's never a fault or a flaw in the wine. It's actually that the wine is still extremely young and needs some time. Usually, you put that in a carafe or a decanter just to aerate it, or you just swill your glass a bit more. And the more reductive the wine is, it tends to offer the more intense fruit. And I'm surprised by how intense the fruit is in this pinotage, this unwooded pinotage. These black fruits are just boom, going through your nose, and you meet them with more subtle black fruit, and yes, mulberry, brambleberry on the palate. The licorice for me was just on the nose, and you have just this refreshing acidity. I would never have thought of unwooded pinotage as quality made. Maybe I'm full of preconceived idea, but that proves me wrong. This is a top of the range wine, unwooded, just focusing on how fruity Pinotage can be, and yeah, unadulterated by oak. Unfettered, you said?
Unfettered,
Unfettered. I'm learning new
But-
words.
and unadulterated is also good.
Okay. It's not a bit more chemical, but it's not. Great wine, Aaldering Lady M 2021, 100% Pinotage from Stellenbosch Wine of Origin. Thank you.